We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Andrew, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AV Rant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And oh yes, if you come on over to YouTube, Tom is a man of his word. What he mentioned about his hair.
Didn't even tell my wife I was doing it. She just came home, and my head was shaved.
There it is.
So, I did not take it down like razor.
Yeah,
I took
this
it down
is
to
not shaving
the smallest
razor beard shave right down to the skin. It's like the zero on the hair clipper setting.
Yes. And we have an old, like I bought these for my goatee when I mean 20 plus years ago.
Okay.
And it's corded and everything else. It's like professional grade or whatever, but it's corded, which is a pain in the butt because it doesn't quite reach all the way to the shower, which is where I want it to be when I'm trying to shave my head, because I'm in a mess in the bathroom trying to do it in front of the sink.
I put in a long corded, just power bar, not even surge protector, just one of those, multi-outlet ones with a long cord. I did that so that my clippers, which are also wired, because you got to use the wired ones. The wireless hair clippers just do not do the job. I don't care how good they say their lithium battery is. They're just not the same as ones that you plug into the wall. So, so I did that, so I can definitely do it in the shower and have much easier cleanup.
We just need the little guides, the clip-on guide things that you get. I just need another one for the shortest one. Okay. That's the one I use for almost everything with my goatee and beard and all that stuff. But that one's just like the teeth are all jagged.
Oh, geez, yeah. No, I always use a bit of a mess. I always use Wahl brand, WAHL. That's the only brand I trust for hair clippers. So that's my suggestion to you, Tom.
There you go.
If the purchase
we are now twinsies, Rob.
That's what happened. We both got.
We're even more of a couple. We're wearing glasses. We got the same haircut. Pretty soon we're gonna have the same dogs. I mean, we're basically a couple.
You're so
people
proud
are going to be
one.
like, "Oh, you guys are so cute together." If we were ever in the same room, you guys are so cute together. How long have you been a couple? Oh, it's been like 15 years, I think, 12 years, something like that.
Just have to do the thing where the dogs also look like the owners. It just that seems to happen with a lot of people. So
don't worry, Rob. I'll put glasses on your dog.
There you go.
When we see that. Yes. So now I have shaved my head.
Okay.
I will tell you that I have much liquid over here, which is good for me, and maybe not so good for you guys, because some of it's a 2 liter of Coke, and I may have to take a bathroom break halfway through this thing. But I also turn my phone on silent, because after last week I was very, very irritated.
Yes.
I was quite upset. So I told my wife, I don't care who knocks at the door this time.
Okay.
I don't care. Mm-hmm. I don't care if it's a SWAT team out there. I don't care. I'm not opening the door.
Oh, wow.
They're going to have to break it down.
Okay.
So, if the dogs go crazy or whatever, I'm going to excuse myself. I'm going to put them in their crates. I'm going to close the door to the home theater and hope that solid core door makes a big difference, because they will continue to go nuts.
If they didn't
she will
tell you as of yesterday evening that they were coming today, then that's on them for giving no warning.
Well, they didn't tell me last week that they were coming.
Well, that's what I mean.
At all.
Yeah. Oh, at all. Okay. Not just the wrong time slot, just in totality.
No, this was, he was supposed to come the week before, and he said, "Oh, I can't make it." And then Tanel, my wife, gave him a couple of times, including Tuesdays.
Oh, I see.
Like all day Tuesday, my husband will be home, and I will be home Thursday and Friday. Yeah. And then he just showed up on Tuesday without any warning whatsoever.
I see.
For a very large bill for a very small job. But honestly, and I know what he did. Mm-hmm. And if you had said, "Tom, I will pay you that amount of money," or maybe even a little bit less to do that job, I might have tried. Okay. I probably would have given up and just paid it.
I see.
Because it was not a comfortable. So my house is old, right? And what's basically happening is we were noticing the paint in one room is starting to bubble a little bit. We're like, "Oh, that's not good." Yeah. Right? So we called the AC guy, because we know that the drain line from our inside unit goes in that direction. And he said, it's the condensation. It's not well insulated. It needs to be wrapped. But it's right near the eave.
Okay.
where it needs to be wrapped. Okay, and you're like, okay, well, that's not that bad. You just go up into the attic and you go all the way down there and you kind of reach your hand around and you do the thing. There's multiple roofs up there. Yeah. There's more than one. Okay, they built a new roof on top of the old roof when they expanded the house. It is a nightmare. I have looked up there and just been like, that's definitely like if you're in a fantasy movie and you start off in a normal place, you look up into the attic and go, that looks weird, and then you crawl up there and you end up in Narnia.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm not going up there. And I've looked at it a couple of times, and every time I look up there, I'm like, I can't be that bad. It is that bad. So in that direction in particular looks impassable to me. The last time I was up there, which was years ago, so maybe I'm remembering it incorrectly, but I would not. There's no way that based on my memory, that I would even attempt to
crawl around up there.
So I'm irritated that the bill was as high as it was, because it was a lot of money for it was essentially insulating a little pipe, which they probably should have done when they installed the new AC.
Absolutely.
Before, but all they did is they took the old lines and then hooked them into the new AC.
Yeah.
And they didn't go and check everything, because why would they? No one would. I don't blame them for not doing that. But I also know in my heart of hearts that there's no chance I would go up in that attic and try to do this.
There you go.
So there you go. This is a reason why you pay people to do stuff.
That's exactly, and ever increasingly more as South Park lampooned and the things that I talked about last week.
Someone was telling me the other day that there's this guy. There's a handyman like out in Silicon Valley that was just charging exorbitant
That's
fees
exactly it. Yes.
For like basic
that's what was being lampooned. All right.
New outlets. Yeah. New color, changing the color of the outlets in the house.
Yes.
Like just literally swapping them out.
That's right.
Because nobody doesn't do anything anymore.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, you can say that, but you can also look back in time and the blacksmiths lamenting that nobody knows how to forge their own armor anymore.
Well, we have a tremendous shortage of butchers at this point, right? Nobody went into becoming a butcher, and now there's a tremendous shortage of them. So
I know.
That's how it goes. Trades, man. Get into the trades.
I keep telling my kids, I'm like, listen, I don't think you understand that you could go to trade school and make crazy money if you pick the right trade.
Guess what the AI can't do? Stuff that requires hands.
I know. Not yet, at least.
Not yet, yeah, but
All right, Rob, what did you watch?
Yeah, so I only watched one movie this week. Just in the background of everything that's going on, I've got some stressors going on in both work life and family life.
He hasn't told me about this.
No,
offline, so
yeah,
I'll find out after the podcast.
We started a little bit late and hopped right into this, and I'm not really making any of it public. So, but just so that in case Tom is stumbling over a bunch of words, particularly in the news that I wrote far too quickly without enough research. A lot of what we say this week might be a little bit, at least coming from my end of things, a little bit garbled, and that's my excuse. But with all of that, I didn't watch a ton this week, but I did take in the movie Saltburn, which for me is available on Amazon Prime Video. I think that's the case in the States as well. But
I think so. Yeah. I know it's available somewhere because I keep seeing it pop up.
Yeah. And I mean, there's quite a bit of chatter about this movie online about mostly to do with
hard to watch, right? Is that what they're saying? That it's is that what I'm thinking? Am I thinking of a different movie?
Uncomfortable situations, sexual situations, nudity, and there's a fair amount of chatter on that now. With all of that chatter that I had seen before, I was kind of expecting there to be a lot more of that, and there really wasn't. It was 3 scenes, and nudity doesn't do anything to me. That isn't the least bit controversial in my opinion. Male nudity, female nudity.
You have to do more than that.
Yeah, that doesn't impact me at all. And honestly, the sort of extended nude scene that went on was very much thematically needed, I would say, completely justified that it was there, because it was very much just showing the freedom that this person finally felt after everything that they had gone through for years and years and years. It totally made sense to portray things that way. As far as the nudity side of things goes, now the uncomfortable sexual situations, yes, I can absolutely understand why some people were very much shocked. Not that it was truly explicit in what was shown, but what was suggested, what we knew was going on, was okay, a little bit taboo, a little bit out of the ordinary. Nothing that, if you've been online for the amount of time that I have in my lifespan, is anything particularly shocking that way. But yeah, I can see why some people were a little bit surprised by that, particularly if they, went with, I don't know, kids or their parents or somebody that they weren't expecting to see that type of stuff with.
I've done that before. When you've started the movie with your parents, you're like, uh-oh.
Yes.
This is not what I thought it was going to be.
But yeah, putting aside all of the online chatter about this movie, this was a really good movie, really well acted. It's starring Barry, and he pronounces his last name Keoghan, which most people in Ireland wouldn't pronounce the G, but he himself pronounces the G, so I'll go with Keoghan. I would have seen him in, if you saw The Eternals, right? He was the guy with the sort of telepathy powers, and... Yeah. And
he's like kind of mousy looking. I say that in not a...
He was the mostly removed Joker under a ton of makeup in The Batman. But anyway... He is tremendous in this. I mean, very much the lead of this movie. It all revolves around us buying into everything that he's doing, facially, as far as expressing his emotions there. You absolutely have to buy into his performance, and it's easy to do so because he is fantastic in this. Now, there is, what's his name? Jacob Elordi. He's sort of the new hot guy. He's like kind of like the new Robert Pattinson type of person who's taking on all of those, very attractive young adult type roles, and he absolutely is believable in that role. He is tall, he is good looking, he is remarkably charming, and you can 100% believe that people become obsessed with him, having only known him for a very short amount of time. He smiles at you and the world, melts away and the sunshine and the rainbows come out, and it absolutely works. All of it works, all of the acting works. Rosamund Pike is in this, and she is hilarious. She's probably the funniest part of this movie, and all of it is, I can see why there are comparisons drawn to The Talented Mr. Ripley. It is definitely not the same story as that.
Sure.
It is not identical, but there are certainly thematic similarities between that movie and Saltburn, and I can see why those comparisons are drawn. So I give a big thumbs up to this. Do be aware that, yes, there are 3 scenes with uncomfortable sexual situations that if you don't want anything to do with that, then those are there, but it doesn't deserve in any way the amount of chatter that I've seen online about it, because it's really not like the whole movie is that, and you would think I thought that it was based on what people were saying, and no, it's 3 scenes, and it's not really that much of a big deal. So other than that,
a whole lot. That was a whole lot to talk about this movie. I'll be honest with you. For a movie, it seemed like you talked a lot about it.
I did. Yeah. Well,
which should say something about the movie.
It's what's on my mind, and that was my reaction to it. But yeah, I really dug this movie. Yeah, it was well over 2 hours and did not feel like it. I was right there for this whole story, just following along, and great performances. So then on Paramount Plus, one of the reasons why I did the 3-month trial is that I wanted to catch up on Evil, which was a show that did originally air on CBS, but then became a Paramount Plus exclusive. I believe there are 3 seasons that have aired so far. There is a 4th that's in production right now. I believe they're saying it's 4th and final, which is perfectly fine by me. Now, I really loved the first season of Evil. I wasn't sure that I remembered enough of it now 3 years later that I wanted to hop directly into season 2.
I don't think I finished the first season, to be honest.
So I decided to just, okay, you know what? I've got the service. I'm going to go ahead and just rewatch it from the beginning. I love it every bit as much, again, going through this first season. There is, I remember most of it. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that, but I wouldn't have been able to recite much or any of it to you if I didn't rewatch it. So just a fantastic show there. I can't recommend Evil highly enough. And thankfully, again, not that I can really trust chatter online, but the people who I know online who are fans of the show, either they're like, yep, it stays good. It doesn't get way worse in seasons 2 and 3, which of course many shows do. They're like, nope, it stays weird. It stays good. It's the acting and everything keeps right up. I was looking just through IMDb, and it doesn't seem like a bunch of the cast leaves once it transitions to Paramount Plus or anything like that, which I was a little bit worried about, because quite often that happens too. So it's like, nope, the cast is there. the four daughters who are tremendously entertaining whenever they're on screen, all talking over each other, all simultaneously at once. All four of those actresses stay around. So yeah, I'm gonna very much looking forward to when I can get around to taking in seasons 2 and 3.
I'll be honest, the first season, I remember feeling it like it was really slow.
I think that's only because it was week to week. It's serialized.
Well, I wasn't watching it I wasn't watching it week to week. I was watching it like on Netflix or something or whatever. I mean, it
was network show, so we're used to everything being so much more condensed in these days of 6-episode and 8-episode seasons now that you get to an actual 18-episode network show and it's like, that seems so much slower than it used to, and the written to have commercial breaks and all that type of thing. So yeah, it's a little bit of a different feeling, but yeah, I still love it. Love that show. Evil, check it out.
All right. I watched Echo episodes 2 and 3.
Okay.
And I'm still liking it.
Yes.
There's only 2 more episodes left.
That's right.
I will tell you one thing, and that is, I love that it's 5 episodes.
Now,
I know. And the reason why I love that it's 5 episodes is because that's a stupid number. Like I've never heard of anything being purposefully 5 episodes.
You're right.
Like I've heard of things being 6 episodes and 10 episodes and 18 episodes and 20 episodes or 24 episodes, whatever it is, but not 5.
Supposedly Echo originally was going to be 6, and then I don't know if it was during COVID that production or what all happened, but anyway, it ended up being cut down to 5. So
to me, the advantage of streaming and the advantage of online specific content like this is that you tell the story in the way that the story needs to be told, right? Sure. Is it a 2-hour movie? Is that the story that you're trying to tell? Is it a 20 episode series that you're trying to tell? Is it because like I said just seconds ago about Evils, I felt like it was slow, and Rob's like, well, that's it. So you got to stretch it out because of because that's what TV exactly. You don't have to anymore.
That's right.
We don't have to do that anymore. We can now tell the story in exactly the way it needs to be told.
Sure.
Like, does Dune need to be 2 3.5 hour or however freaking long these
3-hour movies is what Dune is going to be?
They're going to tell. They must be more than just the first book.
Yeah. I think they're going beyond the first book.
It can't be just the first book. Yeah. Because they're already anyways. I have read the first book a lot. Okay. When we were, my wife and I, before we got married, we traveled throughout Europe and Asia, and I had Dune with me, and I just kept rereading it over and over again. So I know the first story very, very well. That said, you can tell the story as it needs to be told, and like Rob said, it was meant to be 6, but then they kind of cut it down to 5 because. Exactly. They cut it down to 5 because it needed to be cut down to 5. So I'm enjoying it so far. I do like basically everything that's going on. I'm sure that could be better in some ways or worse in other ways, but so far I'm liking it. So, the character is interesting. Her history is interesting. The way they're kind of bringing in like a completely different segment of society, the Native American, or is that what I don't know?
Yeah.
The indigenous people. I don't know what the right term is anymore.
I see.
But they are, they're getting spotlighted and highlighted here. I think is great. So I'm enjoying it. I'm also watching The Bear with my wife, and she really likes The Bear, except that we just saw the episode with Jamie Lee Curtis, season 2.
I haven't watched that show yet, so that reference I'm not sure what that refers to.
So one of the things about this show is it's very New York-y, Chicago-y kind of show. So there's a lot of yelling, there's a lot of talking over the top of people, it's a lot of chaos, right? Well, this particular episode, they flash back to to that family's like life, and so they're showing like a Thanksgiving, I think.
Okay.
I'm not Christmas, maybe. I don't really understand quite what it is, but it is just chaos, and you get to understand why they are the way they are.
Sure.
And this whole group is the way they are. Because in this episode kind of highlights it. And Jamie Lee Curtis takes the starring role in this.
Okay.
And she gives a phenomenal performance. When we got to the end, my wife was like, I didn't like that. I'm like, you weren't supposed to. That's
it's meant to be.
Point.
There's a lot of shows that are meant to be uncomfortable these days.
And it's like that episode was supposed to show you why these people are as dysfunctional and messed up as they are. Why it is that all this stuff is going on in their lives. And Jamie Lee Curtis is like, she just nailed it. So if you have heard about The Bear,
yes,
as far as a restaurant, like I've worked in quite a few restaurants, not tons, and I haven't worked in restaurants all over the world. I don't know. But my experience, even in the most dysfunctional restaurants I've been in, this thing is way more dysfunctional than that. Like the first season, it's like, come on, guys. I mean, there's no way.
That's why they're making a show about it.
Right. But the second season moves kind of away from that, and it's all very well acted. It's all very well written. The whole thing is neat, and I think it's a very good show. If you're not watching it, you probably should. If it makes you uncomfortable, if it makes you feel like this is overwhelming, they're certainly doing it on purpose, and I have no problems with you going, I don't like it though, so I'm gonna turn it on.
Right? Yeah.
I good for you. Yeah. Because believe me, my wife would have if I hadn't been sitting there.
Non-pleasurable experience. I can absolutely understand.
That's the whole thing. So The Bear is very good. I think that's another.
Is that on Hulu for you? It's on Disney Plus where I am, but it doesn't.
Hulu, yeah, it's on Hulu for us. I think they're going to roll all that together one of these days.
That's the idea. Yeah, I mean, Disney Plus in the States is going to become very similar to the way Disney Plus is everywhere else in the world, where the stuff that is separated into Hulu just all gets rolled in.
They pretty much own all of it now, right?
They fully own Hulu now. They bought out the remaining stake from Comcast NBC. So yeah, they completely own Hulu at this point, and whether they'll rebadge it as Star as they have done everywhere else in the world, or if they'll just keep calling it Hulu. But yeah, there definitely will be a Hulu tab in Disney Plus, just like how there's the Marvel tab and the Star Wars tab and the National Geographic.
I would like them to do that right now.
Oh yeah,
get it done so I
happening.
Can drop one of them.
That's right.
All right, let's get the podcast started. This is AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. Get your questions answered. All you have to do is ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. Come to our website, find our show notes, our Flickr album, so you can follow along with the pictures, as well as our previous episodes. Find us on facebook.com/AVRant podcast, youtube.com/AVRant, where you can see my shaved head.
Yes, you can now.
I'll tell you what, I was really concerned about this whole shaving of the head. I think everybody is when they first do it.
It's a change.
And it's not just a change. You cannot see your head.
Yes, exactly.
Because of the hair.
Shape your skull is going to be.
So in my head, I was very much like, what is it? He's called the Master? Is that what his name is? What is his from the Hulk? The guy with the big head. So you're
the leader.
The leader.
Yes.
So you see your hair and you think that your scalp is just underneath there.
Right.
No matter how much product or whatever, how curly your hair is or whatever, you think your scalp is just underneath there, and you think it's going to be like, man, I've got a big old light bulb shaped head, which is what I kind of thought. And I shaved, I was like, it doesn't look that bad. So, I mean, it's so far fine. I mean, I don't know. I don't have to see the back of me where it's probably all very, very white.
You got a headband over there. I can't tell on the video chat.
Yeah, I'm sure. But I'm very much hoping that doing this during the winter will give my skin a little chance to catch a little bit of sun, so it evens out slightly before the summer hits. And well, I'm gonna have to be wearing a lot of hats around here because skin cancer. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Yeah. If you're watching the video, I have my ears are itching because I just took a shower.
Oh, I see.
So water in there.
Residual water inside the eardrums. Yeah, I know how that goes.
All right, well, then contact us. You can contact Rob at avrant.com. His social media is at First Reflect. I'm Tom at avrant.com. Let's thank our listeners of the week. To become a listener of the week, support the podcast in some way. One of the ways you can do that is going to avrant.com, clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, and sending us a PayPal donation. We want to thank Sasi. Sassy?
I don't
Sasi.
Exactly know. He's never said. I say Sasi. Sasi is what comes out of my mouth when I see that name. It's short for something.
Sasi. Thank you, Sasi.
Thank you, Sasi, for your PayPal donation. Very much appreciate your financial support.
We do. And if you want to support us over time, you can go to patreon.com/AVRant podcast to sign up to be a monthly contributor to the podcast. Every month, they'll take some money from you, a minimum of $1. and give most of it to us. So 133 patrons right now. We thank every single one of you.
That is right. That's patreon.com/AVRant podcast if you'd like to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation through Patreon. So big thanks to our 133 patrons over there.
If you can't support us financially, we completely understand. I don't know why my voice keeps cracking. Probably because Rob wrote this really fast.
That's what it is. This is so different, this beginning part here. It's tremendously different words.
Rob shouldn't have given me the out. That anything I say wrong is his fault. Because as Americans, we love to blame the rest of the world, especially Canadians. All right. If you can't support us financially, do something to support us, and we'll mention you here. Aaron isn't letting up. Even more Canadian-only movie codes were sent to Rob to investigate, and he plans to snap up even more discs at a flea market this week.
There it is.
So apparently, Rob's going to keep testing these codes for you, let you know which ones work and which ones don't.
The incoming
welcome,
flow.
Aaron.
Yep, it's totally fine. I appreciate it. Thank you, Aaron.
John emailed Accessories for Less to inquire if they're able to ship to Ireland. Alas, they are not, but John told them that he had heard about them from us anyway. They responded that they do a good job over there, referring to us.
Yes.
So, yes.
Thank you, John.
Do a good job.
I like that you mentioned us to them. That's nice of you to do.
Our listener, Kurt, saw me over the weekend. Hi, Kurt. And sent Rob a message that I am a man of my word, and now my hair is even shorter than Rob's. Don't be shocked into silence, Rob.
That's right.
Which clearly did not happen.
Nope. I had the heads up. I had the warning. Thank you, Kurt. I would have been just absolutely befuddled if I hadn't had that warning beforehand. Even though Tom said he was going to do it, well, maybe I wouldn't have believed it, or maybe I wouldn't have believed it would happen this early.
Learned throughout our marriage that when I say I'm thinking about doing something, it means it's imminent.
I see.
I'm gonna do it. So last week I said I'm thinking about doing it, and that was on Tuesday. And on Wednesday, I did it.
That's right.
All right. We got some notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going through whatever.
Yep. Whatever it is this week.
Trauma is happening in our world right now. From Aaron, John G, John M, Jack, Greg, John without an H.
That's right.
Adam, who says he never misses an episode, and Sasi. Thank you for thanking us.
Thank you very much. I'll say the names one more time. That is Aaron, John G, John M, Jack, Greg, John, which I believe is short for Jonathan, with the way that one is spelled, Adam, and Sasi. That is fantastic. Thank you all very much for your notes of gratitude and encouragement. Thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions. And John G, be careful. Look out for what's his name from Memento there. It's a scary name to have when there's the character from Memento out there hunting you down.
That's true.
Too many John G's.
All right. So there's still more to cover, and this is in the news here, of course. Yes. There's still more to cover from this year's CES Expo. CES isn't typically a big show for home theater projectors. Those mostly show up at CEDIA. In November or October? I thought CEDIA was in October.
I usually recall it being in November, but I guess sometimes
I recall it being
around.
over my birthday. So it's when it's earlier in the year, or later in the year.
Much later in the year than CES. That is for sure.
Yeah. There are quite a few projector demos at CES this year, specifically in the ultra short throw and lifestyle categories, which makes sense. Hisense probably had the most to show when it comes to projectors. For one thing, they had their 8K resolution prototype US ultra short throw UST projector on display, demonstrating that an 8K DLP solution is nearly ready to bring to market. You know what nearly ready means?
So yeah, I'm not actually familiar with how they are doing the 8K DLP solution, because of course quite a few of the 4K DLP projectors are actually 1080p resolution panels, but they are wobbling that panel 4 times per frame to create the 4K resolution. Now we have JVC's much more expensive 8K solution where they have a native 4K resolution panel, which they wobble 4 times to create 8K. I don't know if the DLP solution is a native 4K resolution DLP panel, which would be kind of a new development. We haven't really had native 4K DLP panels, at least for the home market, which then they're wobbling 4 times. Because, if they were somehow still doing it with a 1080p panel, that would be wobbling it 16 times per frame in...
It's a lot of wobbling.
4 steps from left to right and 4 steps from top to bottom, and I don't think they're doing that, but I don't actually know. So I am curious if anybody actually knows exactly what's going on with the 8K DLP solution. I would be interested to know how that's being achieved.
All right. Hisense's new 4K UST, again, ultra short throw models have a 40% smaller chassis, which could make them significantly easier to place at the front of your room. They are kind of big, generally speaking.
Yeah, some of them are
projectors.
Yeah, they're not insignificant. It's not something that you're going to be able to completely ignore sitting up at the front of the room, which is why we've seen like, you know, built-in furniture solutions where it's like a little motorized thing that like lowers it and raises it, but then you have to deal with, is that going to be perfectly aligned with the screen and all that type of stuff. So the idea that you can make these, you know, 40% smaller, that is significantly smaller.
That's a lot smaller.
That's much smaller.
The thing is you always have to deal with the center channel too, and it would be very nice to be able to put the projector behind the center channel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that it's covered.
Yeah.
You can't get away from the speaker.
Yeah.
You really can't.
And
but
this is getting much closer to being able to do that. So yeah, as far as just buying one at a store, bringing it to your home, setting it up, you know, 40% smaller, that's nothing to sneeze at. They've done some work there to shrink it by that much. So kind of impressive.
Yeah, I really want them to come up with I hate using the word AI, but like a automated solution for aligning those projectors. So, because right now what you can do is you put it up there, then there's like there's the box that'll come up, and you kind of align it as best you can, and then if it's kind of needs to be a little keystone, then you adjust the projector left, right, you know, that's or rotate it a little bit or up, down, or whatever it needs to be. It would be nice if you put the projector up there, you put it the corners as close as you can, and the projector basically put on this screen, turn me a little bit this way.
Oh, I see.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know, or adjust my right foot up a little bit.
There's something in the back of my mind ringing a bell saying that there is a ultra short throw projector that basically aligns itself on the screen, but that might just be in terms of leveling, right? Like getting the keystone correct. That is certainly available, but yeah, there's something in the back of my mind where it's like, yeah, I think there was one that kind of just throws itself up.
Well,
there
I think that needs to, because this market is not a super home theater market. I think that's not what they should be going for. They should be trying to undercut large, flat panels, you know, for people, and you know, they can eventually, and they can make things really, really simple. Yeah. Especially when they package it with a screen. Yeah.
Which Hisense very much does. You know, they sell it as laser TVs, and actually, since you just mentioned screens, I forgot to write this in. I'm just realizing now I had intended to, because a large part of Hisense's CES demonstrations were their screen technology as well. Not all of which we know for sure is coming to market. But the one example they had was an automatic motorized rising screen, which there are already the pull up or motorized rising screens, but this one was perfectly synchronized to the projector. Not just that when you power on the projector, the screen rises up, because we already have solutions like that, but they did a thing where as the screen is rising, the projector actually, like, the top of the image shows up as the projector is rising and follows the screen as it rises. So it looks,
that's cool.
Yeah, it looks like a already lit display is rising up. Now, even in the CES demo, it was like a little bit jerky. Like it wasn't a completely smooth movement. Like the physical rising of the screen was smooth, but the movement of the image following it along was like in steps. So it was a little bit jerky, but it was still kind of a cool demo because we haven't seen it looking like the rollable OLED. So that was one demo. They had a projection screen that had transducers mounted to the back of it, so the screen itself physically vibrated to make the sound just like Sony's OLEDs do, where they have the transducers on the back of the OLED panel. There's no separate speakers, and the screen itself is the speaker. It physically vibrates with the transducers. It'd
be fine if you can make that into the center channel.
That's right. So I mean that's kind of nice. A projection solution that has, instead of needing separate speakers, the screen itself becomes the vibrating transducer for the sound. And then lastly, they had their significantly improved, they were calling it their ultra black ambient light rejecting screen, but that one what was unique there is it wasn't for the ultra short throw projectors. It wasn't the sawtooth design, which is already quite effective. This was for their lifestyle projectors, which are much dimmer and are sitting a distance away, right? They're typically shorter throw than like a home theater projector, but not nearly as short a throw as the ultra short throw projectors, and using what they're calling a Fresnel type of screen, which is basically a whole bunch of nanoparticle sized lenses that are off in all different directions, and so that from a specific direction where the projector is set up, it reflects that light back to the viewer's eyes, but then scatters any other light that's coming in from other directions away from your eyes. But it was a much improved screen. So Hisense had a bunch of impressive screen demos too going on at CES.
Okay. The demo that surprised a lot of people was Hisense's partnership with Barco to utilize their dynamic light steering DLP system and a regular DLP projection system. The light source shines on the entire DLP chip, and each micro mirror either reflects that light to the lens or tilts it at 12 degrees to reflect the light into a black light absorber. So it's easy to understand how the majority of the light source's output is actually quote-unquote wasted.
Yeah.
Barco's dynamic light steering system places a moving light modulator where the black absorber would normally go. That moving modulator can redirect the light from the off pixels back to the on pixels to dramatically boost the amount of light that comes out of the lens. Hisense claimed the prototype could produce as much as 2,000 nit highlights from their UST models. So there you go.
Yeah,
I mean, all those people who said that by using including me, I have said it before, though I was wrong. But using an anamorphic lens, you got more light.
Oh, I see.
Would now be more correct because now this actually does the thing that they thought that the anamorphic lens was doing.
Sure. Yeah. No. This is really quite impressive an idea. I mean, it's a in theory easy enough idea. You're like, hey, the way DLP works is if the pixel is off, then that light is shining onto that pixel, but it's tilted so that the light doesn't come out of the lens. It just goes into a black absorber. If we could recapture that light, send that light from the off pixel back to a pixel that's on and is shining that light through the lens, then that would be a tremendous amount of just basically wasted light, wasted energy that we're doing our best to absorb and not allow it to come out of the lens so that black pixels look as black as they possibly can. If we can reutilize that light to the on pixels instead, I mean that's a huge boost. So look, 2,000 nits, right? Not 2,000 lumens. Bright. We're so used to lumens when we're talking about projectors. 2,000 nits, that is an order of magnitude brighter than most projectors are struggling to produce 200 nits. 100 nits is HDR on a projector. 100 nits is the maximum of standard dynamic range on a flat panel, but it's basically the maximum that a lot of projectors are aiming for high dynamic range. Standard dynamic range is typically 50 nits. So being able to get to 2,000 nits on a highlight on a projector, that's right up there into flat panel territory. Obviously, we're still at the mercy of ambient light and how good your ambient light rejecting screen is for what the black level is going to be. So measured contrast, if you have the lights on in your room, is still going to be lower than a flat panel. But yeah, that is way, way, way brighter highlights than we've ever seen from a home projector. So yeah, I'm quite interested in seeing that technology come to market.
So Hisense also had a demo using two of their cube-shaped lifestyle projectors that include automatic edge blending, so that you can easily create a much wider 21:9 image by placing two of the projectors side by side. For those times when you want to use your projector as a computer screen, I guess, or
showing any ultra wide content like that. But it was just that these were like $500-$600 lifestyle projectors, and this was like a pretty automated process. Like you put up the two projectors, you just like edge blending mode, and they just adjust themselves.
It seems like that's simple. That's less of a consumer level feature and more of a hey, look what we can do, and
probably
like art. I could see that being used in like an artist's
or like you say
setup or something like that.
For computer applications, there's 20 of 21:9 monitors. So, but it was just kind of cool that it was a much less expensive implementation of this than we've really ever seen before. So, just cool stuff that Hisense is doing with projectors.
And aside from Hisense, there were projector demos from LG, 4Movie, AWOL, AWOL. I don't know if I'm supposed to pronounce it that way, but
they do.
They shouldn't have done it. Anyways, and some others. But one that caught a fair amount of attention was XGIMI's Aladdin. It's a short throw, not ultra short throw projector with a housing that includes a regular LED room light and an inconspicuous round chassis that literally mounts in place of a standard ceiling room light. So basically, think of like those, like the step up from those super cheap dome lights that you get on your ceiling.
Right.
And this is like a rounder one that is also a projector that you did not know was there.
Projector right in there. Yeah. I mean, this is definitely stealth projector, right? Nobody is going to walk.
Like this.
Yeah. Nobody's going to walk into this room when the projector is off and honestly think that there's anything out of place. You're just like, yep, that's a circular light on your ceiling like you would absolutely expect to see in any room. But then voila, it turns into a projector, and yeah, pretty neat. I like that.
Yeah. And they show it in a bedroom, which is exactly, you know, all these people on Reddit and other places. And and listen to this podcast too, who are like, I set up my home theater in my bedroom because that is my only space in my house. I still live with my parents, or I share or whatever. This is an interesting solution for somebody like that, where you get this kind of two-for deal, because when space is at a premium, this is a perfect solution. I like this. I do like this. It was only in a back room and not on the main CES show floor, but Sharp Display, which, much like LG Display and Samsung Display, is the manufacturing arm of Sharp as opposed to the consumer electronics arm that actually brings final products to market, did have prototypes of their latest quantum dot electroluminescent displays, or QDEL.
We got to have another initialism in here, another acronym.
Quantum dot electroluminescent displays. QDEL in 12.3 and 30-inch sizes, which super relevant.
Well, they were showing tablet size and then small display size, monitor size, right? Tablet size, monitor size. That was the point.
Yeah. So Sharp Display is the primary manufacturing partner of Nanosys, which invented this particular version of direct quantum dot display technology, which they prefer to call nano LED, because they are Nanosys.
Yes, I can see where the nano comes from. I think the LED is a bad choice because there aren't any LEDs involved in this. So I don't know why they would want to put that in there.
Because LED means display to people. The big deal is that with QDEL, or nano LED, electricity is being applied directly to the red, green, and blue quantum dots, which then emit those colors of light directly. No OLED, no blue LEDs or mini LEDs, which then excite red and green quantum dots. This is 100% quantum dots, making all of the light, which means exceedingly pure colors, and nothing can degrade or burn in. Sharp Display claims that the manufacturing process is similar enough to existing quantum dot LCD fabrication that current plants can be converted relatively easily and inexpensively. No need to build entirely new plants from the ground up like there was with OLED. And the size of the displays can be scaled up just as easily. So there's quite a bit of excitement for this new display tech solution to come to market. Yay. I can't wait to have something else. I'm not saying that this is not going to be great. I'm not saying that. But it is infuriating how many different solution LED-ish solutions there are like that right now. I need them to just like I need the war to end and somebody to win. Just pick one. So I don't mind having OLED and something else. Okay, but we have OLED and like there's like
LCD with different, all kinds of different backlights.
Yes, and it's just getting
micro LED, which is still very expensive, but no, I mean. Yeah, direct quantum dot displays, this is not a new idea. It's not even a new prototype. It's just they're getting to the point where mass manufacturing is becoming feasible. And that is a big, big deal. Because, the idea that you just have quantum dots, which are exceedingly efficient at turning whatever stimulates them into a very narrow wavelength of a particular color of light. This is how we get to the full Rec 2020 color gamut, aside from lasers, is definitely with quantum dots. The idea that there's no organic compounds, there's not even LEDs to deal with. These are just quantum dot nanoparticles that are directly excited by just a TFT electric backplane, exactly like we use in current LCD displays. That's why this is so exciting, is that we know how to make TFT backplanes. That's nothing new. We know how to make them really small to make them 4K or 8K resolution. That's nothing new. We know how to make LCDs with small pixel pitch at all kinds of different screen sizes, right? We got LCDs for every single device. So yeah, the idea that now instead of that exciting patches of LEDs, which then shine through a liquid crystal display layer. It's like, nope, that electricity gets applied directly to quantum dot subpixels. I'm excited for this to move forward. This was like backroom demonstration. We're certainly not going to see quantum dot electroluminescent displays in 2024 or anything like that. But yeah, this is coming, and I'm excited about it. So yeah, there we go.
All right, let's talk about stupid Apple and their stupid products. Apple's Vision Pro spatial computing headset pre-orders went live and quickly sold out. Mm-hmm. Why?
Because there are so many Apple fans out there, and they got the monies.
I just don't understand. How many times... I'm not saying that Apple products aren't good. I've got literally everybody left in my family except for my eldest son they've all switched to Apple.
Okay.
They've all got iPhones.
Yep.
My wife continues to try to convince me to switch to Apple so she can track me.
Yes.
I'm like, you can track me. You could just use, this other app. And she's like, I don't want to use that one. I'm going to use the Apple.
That's right.
Like, I don't care. Then call me and find out where I am.
I mean,
because that's what you're going to have to do.
The precision tracking on that Apple Find My app is very handy when you need actual, precision down to the, foot. It's pretty good.
I'm not doing that.
I know.
So, anyways, I just don't understand how people continue to. I mean, when their products are so overpriced, they just are, and everybody knows it. But they're like, and they continue to try to convince themselves, and then by extension me, that they're still worth it for some reason. It's the same thing as talking to a Tesla owner. It's infuriating. It's like, oh well, I never would have discovered this restaurant if I hadn't been forced to charge for 40 minutes. You could have packed a lunch and saved all that. I mean, okay, shut up. All right. This headset online quit. Estimated 180,000 units pre-ordered within the first 48 hours. Just burn that money. Mm-hmm. But in terms of home theater applications, the launch of Apple Vision Pro means one thing for sure. 3D is back, baby, according to Rob, and I do not agree. It's not back. It's never coming back. It wasn't here. It's not coming. It's not staying. Somebody's going to try to convince us that it's new and it's good, and it's still going to be suck.
You got to let me troll you once in a while, so I had to put that
You can troll all you want. It's not happening. Oops, kick the light. So Apple confirmed that around 150 titles on Apple TV will be available in 3D at launch, with more titles to be added, and then very quickly that number will stop because they'll realize that nobody's doing it because no one wants to wear that stupid thing on their head, which by all accounts is not very comfortable.
Yeah.
Even with the extra
strap that they never want to show in the photos. Bit too heavy, bit too hot. Yes.
It's too heavy, too hot. Hey, I have the more comfortable strap for the Oculus and it's great. But you can't spend more than 20 minutes in that thing before your face gets sweaty. You just can't do it. All right, and if you already own any of those titles in your Apple TV library, they will automatically be updated, no extra charge, to be available in 3D on your Apple Vision Pro headset. There's no word yet if you can output the 3D versions from, say, an Apple TV 4K to a 3D flat panel or projector, but the answer is definitely no. Apple is only confirming 3D movie availability using the Apple Vision Pro. I just don't see that happening. But
I kind of doubt it too.
Yeah. And Disney is right there with 3D support. The Disney Plus app for Apple Vision Pro will not only support 3D movie streaming, but also 3D and high frame rate, which is a first for home releases.
Yeah, so you can get your avatars in your 3D and high frame rate. I don't know if that includes HDR, though, because they didn't mention that, because 3D and HDR have been mutually exclusive since we've had them at home. So since they didn't mention it, I'm guessing no.
Yeah. On the other hand, Netflix, YouTube, and Spotify are not... YouTube barely does surround. I don't think they do, so who cares?
No, but...
And Spotify are not supporting the Apple Vision Pro with dedicated apps at launch. Most of the streaming video services are on board, but Netflix, YouTube, and Spotify are saying just use their web browser and web versions of their services, which is obviously a far less integrated and bespoke solution for a spatial computing headset. Stop calling it that.
Basically, the companies that have enough money are like, no, we're not going to give you a 30% cut of everything we do, Apple, for this new thing, and we're not going to spend the money to develop a new app for your 180,000 customers that exist. So yeah, the big
customers are a drop in the bucket for Netflix. That's for sure.
The big enough companies have decided to wait and see at the very least.
Yeah. I give it 2 months. People are going to be 2 months.
I mean, Apple has enough. They could just continue on for as long as they want to do it.
That's true. I'm not saying that's not true, but I'm saying that how could you get that many people to buy a $3,500 headset?
Yes. Apple also has enough money to buy Netflix and Spotify anytime they wanted to. Not so much YouTube. They don't have enough money to just buy Google outright, but Netflix and Spotify, they can just be like, yeah, we own you now, and there's really nothing you can do about it. So they could do that.
In the comments here from our listeners, Jared has quite a story to share. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to read all this. Sorry, Jared.
Is it actually that much?
No, I'm joking.
Okay.
I'm going to read it. I'm just.
I couldn't remember what I wrote.
I want Jared to just go.
I see.
What?
You convinced me.
I know, Rob. Now that I've got no hair, he feels like everything I say is true.
Could be.
We're a simpatico. Our cycles are aligning.
Perfect.
What cycle was that? I don't know. I'm sure there's
the hair shaving cycle. There is a cycle to that.
I'm not convinced I didn't miss a spot, and my wife is and I love my wife, but she's not very observant, and I'm pretty sure that she wouldn't notice if I missed a spot. So I'm kind of like touching it up every day, or every couple of days. As we are well aware, this is from Jared, his story. There are many people with the online home theater community within the online home theater community who are big fans of chasing the below 20 hertz bass and who espouse the importance of the supposed importance of feeling infrasonic bass, which we all know is not true.
Well,
we have spoken many times on AVRant about how and why we are personally not worried about anything below 20 hertz, and Jared has appreciated our level-headed approach, but he had to admit to being curious. Sure. So he put in the effort to reach out to several mixing and mastering engineers who have worked on actual Hollywood movies and their home releases to hear things straight from the horse's mouth, as it were. I just want to tell you, before we go on with the story, there are so many people in the world that other people feel are unapproachable because they are famous or stars. They have their name on things, right? Who are just like normal people who would be thrilled to have somebody ask them a question. So one of the things that I have learned, I knew, but I keep having to relearn, is that like if you're interested in a paper, right, and and you go online and you have to pay, there's a paywall to get the paper, right? Yep. If you find the author of that paper, I'm talking about like the AEA, the AE whatever, the AES, the
AES, Audio Engineering Society, yeah.
If you just find that author and you email them and say, will you send me your paper? I want to read it and I don't want to pay the stupid magazine. Because they don't get any money from the magazine.
Right.
They'll just send you the paper. They're
often
thrilled.
Yes. Can't guarantee that that's going to be the case, but quite often, yes.
Quite often they will. So, yeah. So Jared reaching out to these people, you're like, ooh, that's kind of ballsy. I bet they were just like, thrilled. That's like, oh, you want to ask me a question about? I love talking about audio. Okay, one of them finally responded to him, and they had an amazing conversation over the phone. Over the phone.
Yep.
Jared didn't explicitly get permission to share their names, so we won't mention that on the podcast, but the person worked on Top Gun Maverick's home release as well as Edge of Tomorrow, so that's exactly the sort of content and expertise that Jared has been curious about. To keep it short, and this is a direct quote, we don't think in terms of infrasonic, end quote. But also, quote, we would never roll off the low end, end quote, from what the creators intended. Jared specifically asked about the mixing and mastering studios and what sort of bass curve targets, equipment, and playback levels they use. To begin with, for the theatrical release, they use a full-size dubbing stages and still target full cinema reference volume at 85 dB average, 105 dB peaks in the center and the speaker channels, and up to 115 dB headroom for the dedicated LFE channel. Some of those dubbing stages may go down to single digits, but only a few, and it isn't a priority or a focus.
It like happened by accident.
Yes.
Basically.
Oops.
Yes.
There's a 10 hertz note in here.
That's right.
Occasionally, a producer or director might just send the theatrical mix straight to the home division to put on the disc, but that is becoming less common these days. For the home release, more often than not, they'll end up using multiple studios for a single mix, and each studio will sound different. Some have multiple subs, some only have a single sub. They do not all sound they do not all sound identical, and in some ways that's partially the point. They attempt to make the mix sound good in all of them, but they are not aggressively rolling off the deep bass in any way that would remove sounds or rumbles that you were intended to experience. The mastering level for the home versions is indeed typically 3 to 6 dB quieter than the cinema reference volume. Jared reports that this individual was encouraged to hear that there's a community out there that cares so much about the technical aspects of home releases and investing so much time and effort into creating theater-like experiences at home. But they assured Jared that even if he has a decent home theater setup, he's almost certainly getting very, very close to what was intended. We can trust that we are getting what we are getting on the discs. There's no need to do our own analysis and EQ to bring back missing bass, and he basically don't overthink things.
Yes.
So, yeah.
That was my favorite advice. My favorite quote in all of this is like, yeah, you don't have to think this hard about it. It's like...
Okay. So I want to do a little aside here. So you guys know I'm running 3.2 in my system right now. I still am. Yes. We're still figuring this stuff out. I did nothing.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. I put my speakers in the room. I changed the speaker layout, which negated Odyssey. Odyssey EQ is gone, right? So I did nothing. It just went back to defaults, whatever the defaults are. And I put the speakers in the room. I put the subwoofers in opposing corners. Now, understand, they are not in the same spot as they were before. I put them in different spots. So one was slightly, basically, it doesn't matter. So they are now in opposing corners. So the volume knobs on the back of the subwoofers are almost certainly incorrect. Okay. And I can say that with 99.9% certainty. I am sure that at least one of them needs to be turned up a little bit, and specifically the one that's in the front of the room. The one in the back of the room shouldn't be that much off, but who knows? Maybe it is. It might actually mean they may both need to be turned down because they're both now in corners where before they were slightly away from corners. So I am astonished at how good the system sounds with absolutely no EQ. Now, my room is highly treated, okay? Right. Compared to most home theaters, I got way more treatments in here than most people do. But it is astonishing to me how good it sounds. And no carpet, okay? No carpet. Concrete floor in here. It is astonishing to me how good this sounds. Now, I can tell that there's not enough bass. Like the bass is not loud enough in here. That it's not right. It should be much louder, much more prominent. It's not even. I mean, it's pretty even, but it's all evenly too quiet. But I think it could be better. And when the amount of difference room treatments make in your theater, to me, it's just amazing that you can just get a pretty good experience by doing almost nothing other than just putting room treatments in here. And that's what this person is saying too. It's like, if you're thinking about it at all.
Yeah, like if you care enough to ask.
you've already done more than you need.
That's right.
Right? To a certain extent. Like some people are just, I just want to buy bigger speakers or more expensive speakers, and I don't want to do room treatments. Well, they're only going to get it to be so good. But for most of us, if you are putting the minimal effort to even think about it and to put a couple of room treatments up and to just think about placement, properly placing your speakers, things are going to be so much better. Yes. You're just going to be so good. Yeah, I'm amazed that it sounds as good. Like, I thought I was going to have to at least run Odyssey, and I was like, sounds good enough.
Yep.
Sounds good enough.
Almost as though the room correction is just a cherry on top. If you do the fundamentals, it's maybe a nice little thing here or there you notice once in a while, but it's not the main course. The room correction is not the main course. But yeah, going right back to the original idea that prompted Jared to do this in the first place, this worrying about below 20 hertz bass, got to get that 16 hertz, got to get that 10 hertz, got to get those single digits. As far as the people making the movies that have the low frequency content,
they're not
potentially
doing it on
purpose. They're not thinking about that at all. So
I thought I read somewhere too that 10 hertz note that everybody talks about in Edge of Tomorrow was actually in the center channel.
That we mentioned that ourselves. Yes.
Did we mention that? Okay.
Yeah. A person wrote in with the link to the analysis that showed that. Yep, that's where that frequency was. Basically, that was a mistake.
Yeah. Oops.
Yep.
All right. Rohan in India decided to write us back with what is hopefully the final update regarding his Marantz SR6015 receiver. It was having a very annoying issue where it would work for 15-20 minutes, but then sound would disappear, particularly when using HEOS. Mm-hmm. Strangely, a little sound would still be quietly playing from just the subwoofer, but no speakers. It's basically unusable. Mm-hmm. At first, we were sure it had something it had to be some weird glitch with HDMI CC and one or more of his sources. He made several changes in the settings that we suggested, and for a little while, he thought that it was working, but then the problems returned, so he finally decided to call Marantz customer service. It was still within warranty, so they created a service ticket for him and the official service center in Bangalore, India. Bangalore. I should have been able to say that right the first time. That is within traveling distance for him, so he took it there himself. Of course, when they tested it at the shop, it made a liar out of him. The darn thing worked fine at the shop. They didn't have anything to offer him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Taking the unit back home and acted up again. So he brought it back to the service center and asked them if they would let him play some music on it for a while, then switch it off, unplug it, and then turn it back on to replicate the problems he is having. They agreed. And this time around, it misbehaved in the same way it does at home. Mm-hmm. Credit where credit was due. After that, they agreed to work on it. They had it for 3 days. The service technician said there was nothing obviously wrong when they tested it. All of the internal components appeared to function properly, but he actually completely dismantled it and put it back together again. And so far, so good.
Yeah.
Rohan has been using the receiver a lot at home, largely to test it out, and it hasn't gone silent on him once after this quote-unquote repair. Yeah. Fingers crossed that it stays that way, but ultimately he's thankful for Marantz's service, and he no longer wants to chuck his new receiver out the window. Something was loose. I mean, it's got to be it, right? Something in there must have been loose.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, obviously, we don't know what the problem was if the service technician really couldn't say, oh, turns out we did find a problem. They're like, nope, but we just took it all apart, put it all back together again. That at least now we know all the connections are solid.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's all it was. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yep.
Hopefully something was just a little bit loose. Yeah. When it heated up, it popped out.
Yep. It can be that.
Let's get to the questions here. Michael, one of Michael's friends, is downsizing. He's parting with 2 APC H15 power conditioners. He had them for many years, and he says they're working fine. Excuse me. Michael likes their looks a lot better than most power protection products that you can buy today, but should he be concerned about their age? They have a useful shelf life that expires at some point. I hope not, because I'm using one right now. I've got an H15 right there.
Yep.
I can see it, and I got stuff plugged into it. So yes. as far as I know, if it works, if it turns on, it works. I mean, I don't think that there's anything that can go wrong with it. Is there?
APC, they do use metal oxide varistors as their mechanism for surge protection. And with metal oxide varistors, they are actually cumulative. They do have an eventual end of life. They're not like the type of surge protection that Surge X uses, which is why Surge X products, we love them. They're great. They actually are a good value, but they do cost more upfront.
Yes, they do.
With an APC, you will have to eventually replace it. Now, the good news is there's no ambiguity about when that point arrives. With APC, they do surge protection what we would certainly say is the correct way, which is when that metal oxide varistor does eventually reach the end of its life and it trips, it just shuts off the power to the whole unit. So there is no like, oh, am I going to notice? Is the performance going to degrade slowly? No, it's binary. Either it's working or it stops working. And when it stops working, because there have cumulatively just been enough small and large surges that it has ended the life of the metal oxide varistor providing the protection, then that's it. It can be replaced. You don't have to literally replace the entire unit. APC can provide service, and you can replace the surge protection part of it for a little less money than buying an entirely new unit. But there will eventually come a time when that unit will stop working because there have been enough large and small surges in your system over the course of time that it has worn out that MOV. So if it's still working for your friend, it'll still work for you. You can keep using it until it stops working. So if you're getting them for a song, you're getting them for a really low price, I have no problem using that. Yeah. Of course, we do have to mention H15 is not a battery backup. It is surge protection and filtering only. It is not an uninterruptible power supply. But yeah, if you just need nice surge protection that looks really great in your system, absolutely go for it.
Wish they would start making those again, to be honest with you. I really do.
But one day it will reach the end of its life. Yes.
Yes. Karl, now that CES 2024 has come and gone, he'd like us to gaze into a crystal ball and make a couple of predictions for the remainder of 2024. Do we think JVC and Sony might announce new projector models at CES towards the end of the year? And what else do we predict that hasn't already been officially announced? So I tell you what, if you like headphones, we are in the golden age of cheap headphones. I'm gonna be honest with you, it is insane. I just saw I don't remember what news organization sent it to me. I think it might have been the CDF people, but I could be wrong about that. Basically saying that headphone sales and manufacturing is going to increase by like 10 or 15% in this next year. So if you are on the market for good, inexpensive headphones, this year is going to be a good year for you for sure. I just feel like every headphone that I see coming out is like it's going to be the new best headphone under $50. Right. I'm like, Jesus. Under $50, like how good can it be? And then you get them, and you're like, they're pretty good. You know, they're not bad.
Well, like we know last year, Sony bought up Odyssey and their planar magnetic headphone tech, some of which has already been announced to be coming to those new PlayStation headphones. Those are going to have planar magnetic drivers in them, which I would assume is based on Odyssey's technology, because that's the company they bought. So I would certainly expect to see Sony releasing some more planar magnetic headphones based on Odyssey technology. So that's one fairly confident prediction I can make. Also on the headphone tip, I am definitely expecting to see more of those MEMS-based earphones, the micro electromechanical device headphones. I'm certainly thinking there's going to be more of those. There was some news of that at CES as well, talking about like the forthcoming next generation of the MEMS drivers, where they're like, I think they said it was like a 400 times increase in bass output, which is definitely the weak point of MEMS right now. The ones that you can buy from Creative today are a dual system where they're using a MEMS tweeter, but then a regular type of earphone driver to handle the bass and the lower portion of the mid-range there. So I'm certainly expecting that we'll see more MEMS headphones. Did you want to make what's your guess on what that transparent OLED from LG is going to cost when it comes out at the end of the year? What are you guessing there?
I have no clue.
Okay, it's only coming in the 77-inch size. That part seems
transparent
right
LCD.
OLED, transparent OLED. Yeah.
OLED. I mean, yeah. I don't know. Is that going to be a consumer level product, though? I mean,
oh yes, I mean that's the difference, because we have transparent displays for commercial purposes. That already exists, and I used a little bit of that looking at what sort of prices they charge for those, because there's 55 and 65-inch transparent OLEDs that stores can buy for displays and that. So
you couldn't give me one of those. I'll be honest with you.
That's right. So 77-inch transparent OLED T series, the T4 from LG. I'm gonna guess that they price it at $14,999 or $14,999, $15,000. That's my guess, because I think it's going to be well more expensive than the M4, the wireless 77-inch. It's going to definitely be more expensive than that. It's not going to be anywhere near as expensive as the rollable OLED, because strangely enough, the technology for the transparent OLED is not as different from a standard OLED. But I think it's going to be more than the 77-inch 8K, which is $10,000 right now. I think it's going to be more than that. So I'm like, okay, they've got a model that's $10,000. They've got a model that's $25,000. So fitting right in there, a $15,000 transparent 77-inch OLED. That's my guess. We'll see how close I get.
I just see somebody walking into it or through it.
It's not that clear. It's not some invisible.
Child, you know what I mean, throwing
true,
Nerf balls.
Or there's going to be a
around,
video of somebody's cat jumping at something.
Oh God!
I mean, that already happens anyway with regular TVs, but with a transparent OLED, even more so. I think that's going to happen. He asked specifically, do we think there's going to be new JVC and Sony projectors, like the 4K home theater projectors? What do you think, Tom? Is this the year for them?
I don't know. Why would I know? I can see what you've written here.
It's
I don't want to steal your thunder. So just tell them what you think so that I can go on to the next question.
I mean, the pure guess on my part. I have absolutely no inside info on this whatsoever. But I I don't actually think we're going to get new JVC and Sony models this year. I do think that JVC for sure and maybe Sony will end up adding Dolby Vision support. I now that we have officially licensed Dolby Vision projectors from other brands, I think that's pretty, like, JVC has been very good about having some kind of pretty significant firmware update for their current crop of projectors every year, and I think adding Dolby Vision in there is almost a gimme. That's my actual prediction for what'll happen there. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
you're gonna mention this Class D thing?
I did have one because we haven't talked about this really on the podcast at all. There's a brand called Purify. They're not so much selling things directly, like they're sort of manufacturing the internal components, but they designed a Class D amplifier that they've termed Eigentakt, German word, and basically. It's a really, really clean, really, really low distortion, really, really low invariant Class D amplifier that doesn't cost a ridiculous amount. It's right in line with, Hypex's Encore Class D amplifiers or something like that, which are, not absurdly expensive. It's not cheap, but it's not absurdly expensive. But yeah, I mean, Audioholics has measured these, and NAD already has quite popular stereo amplifiers using these modules that they've purchased and licensed from Purify, these Eigentakt Class D amplifiers. So what's exciting about them is the measurements on them are so good. They're just ridiculously low distortion, and it doesn't matter whether you're using 8 ohm, 4 ohm, 2 ohm, any variation going on in there. They remain ruler flat, which is difficult for Class D amplifiers to do. So the engineering on it is really, really good. So I mean, NAD is the most obviously available from a relatively large and well-known brand. There's an online company, VTV, that is taking those modules that you can purchase as a reseller and putting them in their own cases, doing their own designs. Lingdorf also has one based on Eigentakt's Class D amplifier modules as well. But I'm just predicting that I think we're going to see a larger brand implement these Eigentakt Class D amplifiers in something, maybe Monoprice, right? I could definitely see Monoprice doing something with this.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That reminds me, of course, of the Ice Amps modules that we used to see a lot of, and that fell out of favor when people realized that they...
Depending on what speaker you connected to, they could sound different. Yes, yeah.
There's a reason why Bang & Olufsen was so successful with them, because they EQ'd the crap out of them to make sure that they sounded linear with their speakers. Yeah. And then other people are just like, oh, just slap it on the box and make it pretty and blah, blah, blah. We'll see. John is trying to help out his new neighbor. They just had their 70-inch LG TV wall mounted, and they want a super clean look. So there's just a TV all by itself mounted on the wall with all the wires running inside the wall behind it. Absolutely nothing below the TV, no stand, no equipment, no soundbar, nothing. They very much want to keep the look that minimal.
Yes.
Then that's it. Then stop. But of course, the TV speakers sound awful. Hey, sucks to be you.
This is what happens.
So they want to make use of the 4 in-ceiling speakers that were already in place when they moved in. The speaker wires for the 4 in-ceiling speakers were all run to the location directly behind the TV as well. Well, that's inconvenient. So that's where they need to plug in some sort of AV receiver to provide 4-channel audio. But since they absolutely do not want to see any other gear or wires anywhere around the TV, that AV receiver needs to be something small and slim enough that it can be mounted behind the TV itself. Do we have any suggestions? John couldn't think of anything that would work, so he hopes we may know of something. I would hook those speakers up as stereo, and I would run a very small amp behind there that and then out from the RCA outputs to the very small, there's a lot of them, a lot of itty bitty amps that you can just, you could probably take command strips and just stick it to the back of the TV.
Right.
With you. And then just do it that way. Run them in parallel,
the one with an optical input, or if like a lot of TVs don't have an analog stereo output anymore.
Sure, you might have to get one with optical input, but depending on what the TV has. So that's what I would do. I would just run them. I would not do a receiver. I would just do stereo.
And would you bother hooking up all 4 speakers, like 2 of them in series on either side, or just one pair?
2 of them in series on either side. Might as well. It's just going to be a diffuse sound up there anyways. It's going to sound like crap. So
Monoprice has a very slim stereo amplifier that would be up to this task. So that is certainly a possibility. I went whole hog with the idea of, okay, they actually want to have front left and right and surround left and right, because there is a solution out there, which, that's my excuses just to be able to mention that. Snap AV has their mini AV receiver. It is their mini 5.1 AVR. The dimensions on it are roughly 10.5 inches by 8.5 inches as far as a footprint goes, and then it's only 1 3/4 inches in height, in depth, and it is 5 pounds, and it is meant to be mounted behind a wall-mounted TV with that compact size. On the back of it, it does have 3 HDMI inputs and 1 output, but they are HDMI 2.0 only. It's not HDMI 2.1. I don't think that's a concern in this case. And it does have HDMI ARC, not eARC, but that isn't really necessary because this is 5.1. It's topping out at regular Dolby Digital. It's topping out at regular DTS. It's not doing DTS HD or Dolby True HD, right? It's vanilla Dolby Digital 5.1 and vanilla DTS, but if it's just your TV's audio, that's going to be sufficient. And if all your TV has is an HDMI connection for audio, because that's happening these days, there's TVs without even optical outputs on them anymore. If all they have is ARC, at least this has a solution for that. It's 50 watts times 3 for the left, center, right. You're not going to be using the center. It's 25 watts for the 2 surrounds. It does have an RCA jack for a subwoofer output. And in general, like Snap AV, you can't buy it directly from them on their website. As a consumer, they sell through custom installers. They sell through their dealers. So in general, it's going for around $650, $850, somewhere in that range, depending on the installer. I did find like an unauthorized seller online who was selling it for $356, which is probably closer to dealer cost, but that almost certainly doesn't come with any sort of warranty or coverage or anything like that. So it comes with it in the package, mounting hardware that you might need to attach it to the wall mount or inside of a recessed mount if you have that installed in the wall for the power and all that type of thing. So
that's weird. The one that you linked up, it says English. It says it's the right Snap AV, whatever. It says it's the right website, but it shows a European plug.
Oh, okay. Well, it's probably just a generic image, but anyway, that thing exists. I can mention, Marantz has their slimline receivers, but you would need a significant amount of space behind the television for that to work, because they are a little over 4 inches in height, 4 1/8 inches in height. So that's a significant amount of space behind a wall-mounted TV. Probably not going to fit.
I wouldn't bother with this. I wouldn't bother with this because there's no point to having extra inputs. They're not going to put anything back there. They're going to use the apps on the TV.
Sure.
And you're just begging for additional problems. I just use the small amp.
Just stereo.
Just stereo it up. And if they don't want to use the rear ones, if it sounds weird when there's also sound coming from behind them, just use the front ones. Just use the front speakers with the two front ones. Fair enough. Infinite Gary, our episode last week showed up in 1080p resolution on YouTube. There's even a 1080p enhanced bitrate option if you subscribe to YouTube Premium. Have we finally upgraded from making our videos in 720p?
Nope. I don't know what happened. That must be some automated thing YouTube is doing at this point, and they're upscaling it if they did it, because I uploaded a 720p file.
Extra bits for you, Gary.
Nothing.
You should subscribe. Gary was intrigued by SVS's new Ultra Evolution series. Obviously, neither of us has heard them yet. I am going to get a review pair of the bookshelves in March-ish.
Sweet.
I've asked, and they said that they would ship me some, but there's a waiting list, obviously, and I am way down there on that list. But if we were to speculate, just based on the design and driver technology that they revealed so far, how do we think they might compare to, say, Revel's Performa 3 F208 towers, which sell for $5,500? As we mentioned, with their Ultra Evolution Pinnacle floor standards venturing into the $5,000 pair price range, SVS is entering a new category of price competition. And since Gary is very familiar with and a big fan of Revel speakers, he's curious how we think the SVS's new speakers will stack up. Gary, no one's heard them yet. We haven't heard them. Maybe somebody over who went to CES has heard them. But even them, they haven't really heard them. They have not heard them. They heard them on the show floor or in a hotel room. Floor, that's right. It's not hearing them. Nobody has any clue at all how these speakers sound, except for the people at SVS. No one has a clue. Okay, I didn't take them home. None of them took them home. None of them listened to them in their own room. None of them compared them to anything else. Nobody's got any idea what these things sound like. So this is beyond speculation. This is just
absolute guess.
This is not even a guess. It's just, I mean, it's nothing. It's a nothing. It's nothing. If this were for a 2-channel system in a medium-sized room with proper acoustic treatments, do we think SVS driver design and layout will give them advantage, not the layout, or a disadvantage over what Revel offers at a similar price point? I think that you would put these in a room and listen to them and find far more similarities than differences between them, because they are, once you get to this price point, unless the speaker is designed to have a sound, which SVS speakers almost certainly are not.
Generally, so far, historically, we don't know. Maybe these ones do.
Maybe these are the bright ones.
Or
bass heavy ones.
Or the extra warm ones, or whatever it is, something non-linear. It's not out of the realm of possibility. It's not a brand new speaker.
I would be shocked if that were the case. And Revel, generally speaking, I think is a pretty neutral speaker as well.
They are exceedingly neutral. I mean, they are sort of the epitome of what JBL and Harman are aiming for with their designs, which is an exceedingly, at least anechoically neutral, wide dispersion, even dispersion speak.
I think you put these two speakers next to each other and you'd spend hours trying to find differences, and you'd say, oh, this one's a little bit this and a little bit that, and you would never be able to pick it out in a blind blind test. It's very dumb. I think that at this price point, you are paying for aesthetics, and you are paying for you're paying for making sure that you never have to buy another speaker again. So whether or not you're not going from a $5,000 speaker to another $5,000 speaker and expecting to see an upgrade. Some people do that, and they are either disappointed or they had an audiophile speaker that sounded kind of garbagey, and then they got a linear speaker which sounded much better. You know, generally speaking, though, I think that you would find exceedingly few differences between these two speakers.
Okay. I mean, look, objectively, the SVS Prime or SVS Ultra Evolution Pinnacle, got to get that right, has more drivers. That we can say for certain. There are more.
Get louder.
More drivers. Well, not necessarily. Just physically, there are more drivers. But actually, interestingly, the drivers are all the same diameters, right? The bass drivers are 8-inch woofers, whether that's the Revel Performa 3 F208 or the Ultra Evolution Pinnacle from SVS, 8-inch bass drivers, but the Revel has 2 of them, whereas the SVS has 4 of them, and then 5.25-inch mid-range driver. The Revel has 1 of those. The SVS has 2 of them, and then both of those speakers are using 1-inch tweeters inside of them. So, in that regard, we're not seeing tremendously different driver design, a slightly different driver layout going on in the SVS with some rear-mounted bass drivers, and then Dapolito array, mid-range tweeter, mid-range arranged vertically like that. But yeah. I mean, I'm with Tom. I'm not expecting that in a blind comparison unless SVS did something unexpected and went for a new non-linear sound. Then I would anticipate that in a blind comparison. Something like exactly where they are placed in your room, which will definitely impact how the bass sounds if you do not have them bass managed and connected to a subwoofer. Doesn't matter that one of them is 2 bass woofers, both at the bottom of the tower, and the other one is 4 bass woofers arranged top and bottom, front and back. That does not make the difference where they are positioned in the room and where your seat is relative to them. That makes the difference in terms of what you hear in the bass much, much more. So if you set them up, both of the Revels on the inside and both of the SVSs to the outside and said, oh, they're almost co-located. How come I can hear a difference in the bass? No, that's enough. That's enough of a physical difference in placement that you could definitely potentially hear a difference. And then many people would attribute that to the speakers rather than the placement. That would be incorrect. It's mostly to do with the placement. So it's going to be small differences like that. I have zero doubt that there will be people who do comparisons with these speakers and make all sorts of claims that they attribute to the speakers themselves and whatever design aspect they thought was responsible for it. I'm going to go ahead and say that pretty much all of that is not true.
Yes, I agree with that. And I just remember watching a video on YouTube one time about this guy who was like disproving that you only get 3 or 4 dB bass boost when you have 2 subs in a room, because he placed 2 subs in a room, and he got 6 dB, which is what blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay. And I looked at his room; he had them on either side of his center channel.
Yeah,
I'm like,
They were basically co-located. They were basically side by side.
Oh, they're not co-located. They're separated. They're separated. Look how separate they are.
I can see a distance between them.
I can see light between them. Okay. Just because you don't understand how things work does not mean that that's how they work. What makes sense to you is not necessarily science. So just stop being stupid. But yes, I think that at this price point, you can get speakers that sound dramatically different from each other. But some of them are good speakers and some of them are bad speakers, and that's the difference. If you put two good speakers at this price point next to each other, you're going to go, I don't know, they sound kind of alike. And other than perhaps being louder than the other, right. I don't expect there to be very many sonic differences. As we mentioned in the news, CES 2024 isn't typically the place, or CES in general, isn't the place for traditional long-throw projector announcements. We saw a lot more of those at CEDIA, but there were quite a few ultra-short throw projectors being demoed, and then, of course, there were all the huge flat panels that are now competing directly in terms of image size. How do we foresee things playing out? There seemed to be an effort to make UST projectors physically smaller, brighter, with improved contrast, with the improved ambient light rejecting screens to go along with them. Sure, flat panels will always be brighter, unless you get those 2000 nit things.
The 2000 nit light steering stuff, who knows? Yeah.
But 110 or 115 inches, there are literally logistical concerns with how you could even get one of those into many houses or apartments. Do we think the convenience and price of ultra-short throw projectors will mean growth in that market and cutting into flat panel display sales a bit more, or is this more of a last gasp for projectors as flat panels enter projector-like screen sizes and modular micro LED displays continue to advance? Okay, I think the long-form projector is a dead format. I think that that's projectors? What I think. Okay. Yeah, I think having a projector behind you and across the room from a screen is the dodo
and more or less requiring a light controlled room.
Yeah. I think that ultra short throw projectors are the future. Okay. I think that just like I said at the very beginning of this podcast, I think that they need to start talking about ease and facilitating ease of setup. People are scared of short throw projectors. People are scared of projectors. A TV, you put it on a piece of furniture and you turn it on and it works.
And that's exactly what Hisense is aiming with, right? Like marketing them as laser TVs, having these automated screens that go along with them when you press on, like all that type of stuff is very much aiming at that. Yeah, let's take away the stigma and the fear and make people just consider this as a TV alternative that is bigger than any TV you can buy. Still, 120 inches is still bigger than 115. That's just objectively true and costs less as well.
I need to see an advertisement where somebody's trying to get a TV box into their house and they can't do it, and they're all, it's like the infomercial thing where it like goes to black and white and they throw it on the ground and get all mad, and then all of a sudden somebody walks in with their little itty bitty box and with the screen in it and stuff like that, and then boom, they set it up and they have this massive screen there.
No, I mean
that's what it's. I think that I do not think that projectors are dead. I think that ultra short projectors are brilliant. I think that they absolutely are a direct competitor, and as long as they can continue, if they can keep the prices down, or they can get the prices down, right, so that they're in line. Because right now, flat screen TVs have two main disadvantages. One, physically getting them through doors can't be problematic.
Well, I mean, like TCL's 98-inch S5 that came out just last year, it's on sale for $2,000 right now.
Yeah.
Even the ultra short throw projectors aren't that inexpensive. If you're going for a 100-inch screen, 98-inch flat screen is going to win that one. Now, I will say, like, in my apartment,
up a pair of, trying to get up a set of stairs though, and into a bonus room above your garage. Good luck.
But ultimately, in terms of market in general, right? Like the number of people who are looking for a 100-inch plus image size, that is not going to become the absolute norm. That's still a niche of the display market in general. And I personally don't see that projectors are going to cut into the flat panel market. I still think it's going the other direction, right? I think the $2,000 98-inch TCL is making it easier for the people who might have considered an ultra short throw projector just because of screen size and price to go, wait, I can get a 98-inch LCD TV for $2,000. I'm going to do that. So I do actually think it's going to continue moving that direction, that flat panels will remain more popular and will actually grow in terms of towards that 100-inch size, that's going to become more popular for flat screens. So yeah, I don't see ultra short throw projectors cutting into the LCD market, not at all.
You got to remember, people buy their TV based on the old TV size.
Yep.
So it's going to take them a while to get to the point where they get themselves up to closer to 100 inches. Right now, 65 inches is for most people like, oh my God, that's huge. I'm like, is it though, really? I mean, how close are you sitting? It's going to take them a couple of buyings to get up towards 77 and 85 inches because they're just not there yet. They don't buy TVs that often. So, it's still, like Rob says, still in those big screens, really big screens are a niche. Jason's been hanging on to his Pioneer Kuro Plasma TV. The picture still looks great, but elsewhere in the house, he has an OLED TV, so he knows that something even better can be had today. What is on my screen?
That I don't know.
I don't know either. I wish I knew what that was because it's gross. The thing is, he doesn't want to replace the Kuro until he either gives up the ghost or becomes possible to buy a 100-inch or larger TV that is as good as an OLED. The current $20,000 price tag for a 97-inch OLED is definitely too much. You can get a transparent one for $15,000 according to Rob.
I don't know. Yes. Yeah.
Well, his Kuro is starting to have some functional issues, so he wants to be prepared to replace it this year. And despite how LCD TVs have improved with mini LED backlights and local dimming, he really can't picture himself buying anything other than an OLED. Wait, and Sharp will bring out those micro.
That's going to be quite a while. The quantum dot is a long ways away.
So the 83-inch G3 is what he has in mind, but of course, 83-inch size specifically did not have the micro lens array technology that 77-inch and smaller sizes had last year. Then at CES, LG announced the 84-inch G4 will have the micro lens array. So bottom line, is it worth it? The 83-inch G3 will be going on clearance and is sure to be available at a lower price than what the G4 costs brand new. He has never had any issue with the available light output from his B2 OLED. During the day, he uses the ISF bright room picture mode, and at night he switches to the ISF dark room mode. The B2 is plenty bright to him in either scenario, and is he right to think he'll be just fine with the 83-inch G3 instead of a G4 and more money left in his pocket? So I don't know, honestly, and I will tell you this. You run the risk if you get the brighter, better display, the G4, that you're going to start looking at that B2 and go, and then the money that you didn't have in your pocket to begin with because you spent it all on that G4, now you're really not going to have any money because you're going to keep looking at that B2 like, why you suck so bad? What's wrong? I'm going to go use the bathroom.
Okay, well, on the other hand, Tom won't know this because he can't hear me right now, but I'll let out of the bag at this point. I have in my possession at this point a 77-inch G3 because, yes, I've been waiting all this time to replace the OLED that got damaged in my flood back in August of 2022 at this point, I think it was. It's been a long time, but I've been waiting because I really wanted to get a 77-inch OLED, and honestly, I really wanted that G3 to see it, so I have one in my possession. Don't ask me for photos and setup yet. I don't know when I'm actually going to ever get it into my theater, but it will happen at some point. But yeah, I have one of those. So I'm going to go ahead and say, you don't have to worry about the micro lens array. you don't, right? I'm comparing it to what a C2, right? All the way back to a C2, which definitely didn't have micro lens array and wasn't even as bright as the G2 series, because the G2 series had an extra heat sink on there that let that one get a little bit brighter than the C2. But yeah, now into the G3, got the micro lens array, and it's like, okay, if I'm testing it, right? I'm testing it with a 10% or 2% or 5% test pattern window. If I'm testing it with very small specular highlight content that, we know was mastered to a brighter level, the 4000 net level in a Dolby Vision or something like that. Yes, the MLA is brighter, right? Look, that's factually backed up by all the measurements, all that type of stuff. But let's talk about the overall experience of just watching content and not having two different OLEDs side by side. I'm not noticing a big change. There's not a big change with the G3 that I'm viewing. I'm like, yep, looks about the same. Looks about the same as the C2. It's not drastically brighter in day-to-day life. And so I'm actually going to tell you, I don't think you even need a G3. Get an 83-inch C3, and I think you will be thrilled. And you'll have even more money left in your pocket. That's my genuine advice. This is from me seeing it in my setup with my own eyes in my own place. It's not any kind of controlled demo or anything like that. I'm like, can I create the scenario where my 77-inch G3 with MLA is brighter than the C2? Yes, that is factually a thing that can happen. The vast majority of time, day-to-day life, watching regular content, doesn't look any different. It's not noticeably brighter. So that's why, get a C3. Get an 83-inch C3. You'll be even happier.
So he asked, what about the new Alpha 11 processor in G4 and all the supposed image processing improvements it will bring? He's not worried about built-in app performance. He always uses an external streaming box. So is the new processing going to do something amazing with HDR that the G3 just cannot match?
Nope.
Which you don't know won't bother you.
No, you're going to turn off all the stupid AI stuff that messes with the pixels anyway.
Yeah.
And once you do that, nope, not a darn thing.
So once his Kuro is replaced, he'd like to upgrade his AV receiver as well. He is currently using a Denon X3000 and honestly does everything he wants audio-wise. It's a 7.1 channel receiver, dual sub outputs, but it's just an internal Y splitter. Yes. With Odyssey Multi-Q XT, not XT32. And other than Zone 2, it does not have pre-outs. He'd like to stick with Marantz. He'd like to stick with Odyssey. It's really just that he needs 4K HDR and Dolby Vision support on the HDMI ports for all of his sources. But he isn't a high-end gamer, so HDMI 2.0 would suffice, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep, 4K 60, Dolby Vision, all that stuff. It's just the 4K 120 that you need HDMI 2.1 for, and if you're not a high-end gamer, doesn't matter.
So is there maybe an older Denon model that he could get at a lower price that would suit his needs? Yes. I would go for the cheapest one with XT32. But I honestly don't think that you're going to notice a massive difference. I mean, provided that your room is... If your room is very well treated and very well designed, maybe you might notice a little bit of a difference with XT32 over not XT32. But if you're in like a less treated room where Odyssey really can't do as much as it maybe it wants to, I think there's an exceedingly little difference between the two of them. So in my AV receiver like buying guide, it's always look for the features that you will actually use and get those. So what do you got, Rob?
So I'm going to say go to Accessories for Less because you're going to get a great price on at this point, 2 or 3 year old model from when it first came out, but absolutely fits your needs. There's basically a 1-for-1 replacement for your X3000 that is like the exact same feature set, but has HDMI 2.1 and even a single HDMI 2.1 or HDMI 2.0 5 inputs, and then a single HDMI 2.1 input if you ever do need to hook up an Xbox Series X or a PlayStation 5 or a high-end gaming PC. It has a single input in there, and that is the X2700H. We are on to the X2800H now, which basically just took away any of the analog video and made all of the HDMI ports 2.1. You don't need any of that. So you can get the X2700H for $450 refurbished over at Accessories for Less. That, if you are happy with the feature set you have now, it's like a 1-for-1 replacement, but the HDMI has been upgraded, which is what you asked for. Now, if you following Tom's advice and semi-advice, and you want to go to XT32, well, then that's the X3700H, same family, basically the same idea, except now you actually could process as many as 11 speakers with that one if you wanted to. It's got a full set of pre-outs. That's an obvious difference. And it costs $850. So $400 more for, in your case, basically just going from XT to XT32. But then you have the opening there to add more speakers and stuff if you ever wanted to, or pre-outs to an external amp if you ever wanted to. Yeah,
I wouldn't pay $400 for that.
If you want to save money, the X2700H is what you asked for.
I love getting the best room correction. I love it. I love recommending it. I love recommending it even more when it's accompanied with other features that you are actually going to use. But if you're not going to be adding more speakers and you don't plan on adding a gaming system anytime soon, or more than one gaming system in your case, because you could do one. You
sure could. You could also plug the other one directly into your brand new LG OLED TV and just use eARC, because that'll work on the X2700H as well.
I want it almost double the price. I just want it. As much as I would love to tell you to get the best thing, but I just don't think it's going to make that much of a sonic difference. John in Ireland. John is back, writing us from Midlands, and yes, since we asked, that's an official name of the region. So it's a group of 4 counties, and he's in awful.
I don't know how to. Irish names often have different pronunciations, but it's spelled like awfully.
Yeah. I'm sorry, John. Awfully. It can't be the way it's said.
It is 100%
I love Irish accents. I could listen to Irish accents all the time.
Fantastic.
I love it. And yes, I know there's more than one. I know that there's regional differences. Yep. I don't care. The less I can understand you, the more I like it.
From street to street, people in Ireland can have different accents, let alone city to city.
There's people I follow on TikTok whose the sole reason is their accent is so fascinating that I don't care what they're saying. I just want to hear them say it. So the last time he wrote to us, he asked if there might be something he could fix to fix his AV receiver that would briefly power on but then shut down immediately every time. Suggested there's probably a short circuit that could be caused by just some dust or spider silk across the pair of binding posts, either on the back of the receiver or inside the chassis. So he started by running a vacuum cleaner across the back over the ventilation slots. To his astonishment, his receiver worked after that. It's tough.
For a little bit of time.
Sitting up here being right all the time. But then it started shutting itself down again. Dang it. Yeah. So he removed the top cover, got some compressed air, as I suggested, and gave everything a thorough cleaning inside, but sadly it remains unreliable. Most of the time, it still shuts itself down. So given its age, trying to send it in for repair doesn't seem worth it. He'll just replace it at this point. He just wanted to share the end of that tale. Okay. Didn't sound like he checked the speaker wires, though. I'm going to throw that out there. I'm going to throw it out there that you didn't check the speaker wire. So if you get a brand new receiver and you plug it into your current speakers and you go, it's still doing it, then you'll know that you should check the speaker
One stray strand is all it takes, and it doesn't even have to be all the way touching, just close enough for that electrical connection to hop across the 2 binding posts. Yeah, I mean, having run the vacuum cleaner, it might have just moved that one little stray strand just enough that it stopped making the short circuit every time, but it's just close enough that once it heats up, it does it again. So, it's not out of the question that it does work, and it's just a stray strand. Yeah.
So he's got a different AV receiver of his. Right. This is a Pioneer Elite. The receiver itself works totally fine, but the remote that came with it has a couple of buttons that don't respond most of the time anymore. Unfortunately, it's the volume up and down. Yeah. Those are kind of important buttons.
Kind of need those, yeah.
He was able to pick up a learning remote, which worked fine to learn the volume up and up command, but the volume down didn't work, and that definitely isn't cutting it for his wife.
Gets louder.
It only gets louder. I'm sorry. Then you shouldn't keep talking during this thing, is what I'm saying. Listen, if she's listening to this, Rob made me say that. Canadians.
It was all written down in anticipation. Yes.
Low key mean. You don't know that. They make their American friends say
we are.
All right, that definitely kind of for his wife. So should he attempt to open up and fix anything inside the original Pioneer remote, or do we have another suggestion to fix for a fix in this situation? If you have to ask whether or not you should open up the remote to fix it, the answer is no. Okay,
and I mean, chances are with remotes, depending on the type of contact that's in there, there's not much that you can do besides replacing the board or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, it's more hassle than it's worth. What I would suggest is you can in Ireland. I don't know, like there's some section. So obviously there's North Ireland that is part of the United Kingdom, and then there's Ireland, which is where he is, which is not part of the United Kingdom, but very often you can still ship things from like Amazon UK to Ireland, or you can certainly go through one of the European sites, your Amazon France or Amazon Germany. They will definitely ship to Ireland. It doesn't seem like there's a dedicated Amazon Ireland to go to at this point, but either way... I know, right? Either way, whether you're shopping in euro or you're shopping in pounds, you can get a Sofa Baton U2 And yeah, so it shows up as 72 pounds in the UK with VAT, so that's already accounted for, or 64 euro if you're shopping through the France or the German Amazon website. So the Sofa Baton U2 is a great, in my opinion, universal remote where it isn't just learning. It can learn, but it isn't just learning. They have a whole database through their app. There's definitely going to be Pioneer Elite in there. And what I like about suggesting the Sofa Baton U2 to a lot of people is that it works the way most people expect it to use a universal remote, which is there's just a little thumb dial on the top. You choose what device you want to control, and now the remote controls that device. And when you want to control your next device, you move the little thumb dial to the next device you want to control, and now it controls that, right? So rather than being activity-based or macro-based or any of that, it does offer volume punch through so that no matter what device you're controlling, it will only control the volume on, say, the AV receiver. If you want to set that up, you can absolutely do that. So yeah, it works the way most people expect. It's not crazy expensive, and it has an app with a database of codes. Pioneer Elite will definitely be in there, so you don't have to learn commands, and you can set that up. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah. Universal remote is the solution here.
Yeah.
And whatever one that you choose. That learning remote, I don't I don't understand how it can't learn the volume down, but it can learn the volume up.
Well, because the original remote, it just isn't outputting the volume down command reliably enough to learn the output. Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, you got to be able to program these things.
Yep.
Jack is looking for suggestions for a new computer monitor. He'll actually be getting 2 or 3 of the same monitor. He has some specific needs. It needs to be larger than 24 inches. He has a single 32-inch Samsung monitor right now that he really likes. It's curved, which he doesn't mind in terms of viewing, but the physical shape is a bit awkward and the curve is a bit aggressive. So he'd prefer flat monitors, but being curved is not a deal breaker. He needs to be able to plug in 2 sources, both a desktop and a dock for a laptop. During the day, both Jack and his wife work as programmers. They deal with spreadsheets and small text all day long. Text clarity is of paramount importance. They need to be able to view tons of information all at once, so high resolution, ideally 4K, is a must. In the evenings, they do a lot of photo scanning and restorations of old film stock, so color accuracy is also critical for those purposes. So it ain't going to be cheap, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, this is not going to be a bargain basement. Yeah.
Paying around $1,000 for each monitor would be okay. Great if they could spend less, but performance is the main thing that we recommend. Rob, what do you recommend?
Okay, so when it comes to text clarity, this is a problem with computer monitors these days, because almost all of the LCD monitors for some reason have changed to this BGR subpixel structure instead of RGB. It's the same subpixels, but they're just in a different order, and that means that color isn't as clear anymore because all of the Microsoft Clear type and everything like that was designed for RGB subpixel layout for the subpixel rendering and subpixel anti-aliasing and all of that. I don't really know why Windows hasn't caught up at this point to working better with BGR subpixel layouts in their Windows Clear type. At some point, I imagine that they will, but it's an issue at this point. And the smaller the text is, the more apparent it is when that subpixel rendering and subpixel clarity isn't top performance. So I really want to suggest an RGB subpixel layout. I want to suggest one for all the things that you have talked about that has good contrast, because when you're doing photos and video stuff in the evenings there, you don't want to deal with one that has uneven backlighting or bad contrast and bad black levels in general. That's going to be a problem when you're trying to restore old film stock for sure. And then you want that clarity for the text. So I'm going to end up at Samsung's Odyssey Neo G series, and specifically I'm actually going to point you to the less expensive G7 instead of the G8. The panels in them are the same, but the G8 has more of an anti-reflective coating on the screen that actually slightly blurs things. It is great for video games. It's great for video and photos and that. You'd never notice it, but for really small text, it makes it ever so slightly blurry, whereas the G7 doesn't have that. So the G7 is on sale right now for $900. It's bumping up against that $1,000 budget, but doesn't break it. It is 32 inches only. So it's the Odyssey Neo G7 from Samsung. That is the monitor that I'm going to point you to most directly. It is curved. they don't have a flat version of it. It's a 1000R curve, which is somewhat aggressive, but pretty comfortable to look at. So that's a small caveat. It does come in the package with an adapter because it's got like kind of a circular mount on it for its stand, but it will adapt it to a regular VESA mount if that's the way you're mounting it. But it will, of course, have the depth of it having that curve. There's not really a way around that. So you said that wasn't a deal breaker. It's not ideal. I'm like, that's the sort of thing you'll have to get past. But yeah, in every other way, it's what you asked for and fits the budget just fine. Yeah. Odyssey Neo G7 from Samsung.
Okay. How much time we got left here? Okay, we got it. Mike is building a DIY acoustically transparent projection screen. Does he need to add black backing to the screen material? If so, could he just use black burlap? And does the black backing make physical contact with the back of the screen fabric, or should there be a small gap between them? So the idea here is that you want to make sure that your white is as white as possible, and that there's no light or anything bouncing off the back wall and coming back through.
Yeah.
And there's, first of all, I can see no reason why you would need to leave a gap. I mean, maybe. I can't imagine why, unless the two pieces of fabric are going to vibrate against each other. I would just slam them both together, sew them together if you could, and then use that. I can see no reason why you would need to leave a gap between them. And,
on the regular screens that have it, there's there are ones that have separate channels for separate layers, but most of them it's just a single channel that you're putting the fabric into, and they just end up right back to back against each other.
My issue with burlap is every time I think about burlap, I think of a scratchy sort of textured material, which the air doesn't care. It's going to go right through. It doesn't really matter. But I would worry about how it would interact with this white material that's in front of it.
Yeah.
So I would just go with
a bit larger than ideal in burlap.
I would just go with a regular old speaker grill cloth.
Grill cloth, yes.
Would be what I would go with.
Yeah, you can get very inexpensive one from Parts Express if you want to go that route. Seymour AV also has a premium black speaker grill cloth that they have made for them for this purpose as a DIY black backing solution. The bolt itself is 65 inches wide, and then they charge $850 per linear foot of that 65-inch width. So that's what they recommend for most people. They have a more expensive Millibel black backing, but it honestly isn't necessary unless you just need a wider bolt, because that is available in a 98-inch width bolt, which is unusual for fabric, but they have that specifically for screen purposes. Honestly, the black speaker grill cloth that you might get from Parts Express will work just fine as well for a DIY screen. The question of whether you need the black backing or not really depends on what is behind your acoustically transparent screen. If it is a white glossy wall, I would definitely want a black backing because any acoustically transparent screen, light will go through it. It will then hit whatever is behind that screen, and if what is behind that screen is reflective and light in color, then light will come back through the back of the screen and it will wash out your contrast. On the other hand, if you've painted behind your screen to be matte black already, you don't need a black backing fabric because very little light is going to reflect off of that matte black wall if that's what you've painted behind your screen. So it's all about what's behind your screen. If it's reflective, then I'd add the black backing, and it doesn't have to be very expensive at all.
Greg, last week, AVRant listener Mike asked about replacing his broken Panasonic plasma with the least expensive OLED he can find, probably an LG B3. But Rob suggested keeping an eye on Samsung's S90C QD OLED prices. I don't remember this, so it must have been after I left, since they sometimes drop in price to be close to the LG B3 prices, but the S90C is a bit better overall and has a less reflective screen finish. Greg asks, what about the Samsung S89C? It's only one less.
In the
numbers, the S90. Yeah. It only comes in one screen size, 77 inches, and exclusively available at Best Buy. But right now, both the 77 S90C and LG C3 are priced at $2,300, while the 89C is available for $2,000. That's $300 better.
That's what it is.
Meanwhile, the 77 B3 is $1,900. So the S89C is only $100 more. Could maybe that be the best option for Mike? Greg? Why you gotta be second guessing this, Greg? You want us to ever help you again, Greg? Maybe don't maybe don't talk smack, Greg.
I'm glad he did. It's why I put this on there. I had to thank Greg because I had a misconception about what was going on with that S89C. Now, first and foremost, I do, in the back of my mind, recall that Mike was saying he wouldn't mind going with a 77-inch screen size. Obviously, if you want something other than a 77-inch screen size, this isn't even an option, so that would answer that. But if it was the case that he did want 77 inches specifically, I was under the incorrect perception that the S89C was a different model number because Samsung did purchase a bunch of 77-inch and 83-inch panels from LG, right? They were not quantum dot OLED. They were LG's WOLED, the white subpixel OLED version that LG uses. And Samsung bought a whole bunch of 77-inch and 83-inch panels from them. Now, there is an 83-inch S90C, same model series as all the other ones below it, but that 83-inch is the LG WOLED panel because Samsung Display does not manufacture quantum dot OLED panels at the 83-inch size. And so when I saw that S89C only available as a 77-inch and a slightly different model number, I'm like, oh, that must be what they did with the 77-inch LG panels, right? It's still an OLED, but they gave it a slightly lower model number and charge a little bit less because I was under the impression it was the WOLED panels from LG Display, not quantum dot OLED. That is the case overseas. That is the case throughout most of Asia, throughout parts of Europe. That is the case. It is not the case in North America, where the S89C 77-inch only that we get in North America, US and Canada anyway, is a quantum dot OLED. It's bizarre. I'm not exactly sure what was going on there, but it is, for all intents and purposes, identical to the S90C 77-incher. It just has a different stand. It has feet instead of a nice pedestal stand, but that's like the only difference in North America. So absolutely, I agree that if what Mike wanted was a 77-inch size, the S89C is a great deal. Go get it.
I think Mike should keep his mouth shut.
It wasn't Mike who said all this.
Oh, whatever.
Greg did the correction.
Greg,
and I thank him for it because whatever the word is, corrected me. Easy enough to say.
Disproved? You weren't trying to say disproved. No.
I was like, I don't know. I don't know what I was trying to think. I'm getting punchy.
Dissuaded. John is currently running a JVC NX7 projector with a 100-inch silver ticket screen. His room is a dedicated home theater with 100% light control, but with 98 and 100-inch flat panels becoming downright affordable now, he's very much considering replacing his projection setup with a TCL TV. Part of what swaying his decision is that used JVC NX7 projectors are still in demand. He has an extra lamp on hand that he can include if he sells it, and looking around at other sellers, he thinks he'll probably fetch around $4,000 for it. One thing that spurred him on was finding a sale price on a 98-inch TCL S550G. It is down to $2,000 for a 98-inch TV. That's crazy. If he were to sell his JVC setup for $4,000, buy the 98-inch S550G for $2,000, and upgrade his Marantz SR6011 receiver to a model with HDMI 2.1, he might still come out ahead, especially if he buys for accessories for less.
Right.
So what do we think about all that? Should you pounce on the 98-inch S550G at this $2,000 sale price? I mean, I keep saying that my next TV is going to be a flat panel, and there's a reason for it. And yes, I mean, I don't know specifically this TV. I don't know that this TV is of the quality that you're expecting. Yeah. Usually when it's like a crazy price like that, you're like, oh, what's wrong with, is it edge lit or something? So I would worry about that. But if you're saying, can I sell my $4,000, if I can get $4,000 for my projector, right? Should I? And so I can get a cheaper flat panel. And the answer is you probably yes.
Yeah, so I hesitate a little bit to say pounce on the S550G because it does not have local dimming. It is
that's a deal breaker, really.
Yeah, it is at least not edge lit. It is a direct backlight, but it is a single always on backlight, no local dimming, and not crazy bright. Like it is compatible with HDR, but isn't really fully HDR. I mean, it's brighter in terms of nits than your NX7, but it's not significantly different. And honestly, the black levels on it would be worse than your projector, unless you turn the lights on, of course, in your room, looking at a white screen. But when you're using your screen in your 100% light controlled room with the lights off, your NX7 actually, I would venture, looks better. Maybe not as bright, but better black levels, better contrast than the no local dimming S550G. So there is, of course, the current model, the step up in TCL's 98-inch offerings, the QM8, which is mini LED backlights and oodles of local dimming zones. But that one is selling for around $5,000 right now, which is still a crazy good price for a 98-inch mini LED, tons of local dimming zones, 1,500 nit type of flat panel display. It's still amazing you can get that for like $5,000, but it would not be less than what you're likely to get selling your NX7. However, the previous year's R754, that was a specific model number. It only referred to the 98-inch size. The R754 from TCL is down to $3,000 now. That is directly, if you go to TCL's own US website and click on the Where to Buy button, there's like Electronics Expo and PC Richards and a few other places that are selling those off for $3,000 now. That one, in my opinion, in some ways, I actually like it better than the QM8, because even though it doesn't have as many local dimming zones, the QM8, because it gets even brighter, the blooming is actually more noticeable. I thought the R754 struck a really nice balance between like hitting just about 1,000 nits, right? It's not crazy bright, but it's definitely noticeably HDR. Having local dimming, but really controlling the blooming well. I thought they struck a really good balance with that R754. And at $3,000, I would jump on that all day long. I think it is worth $1,000 more than the S550G. And like I say, in some ways, I even like it better than the QM8, and it's definitely less expensive at this clearance price. So that's my suggestion to you.
Yeah, it's saying 10 grand here. When I try to click on where to buy.
I mean, that's the MSRP. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yes.
Yeah, you click where to buy. There's a bunch of, that's on their own website. So those are sites that they obviously trust to forward you to. And yeah, $3,000 is like the going rate. It is clearance. It's not going to be around forever.
Yeah. All right, we'll do one more. Adam, longtime listener, first time question asker. Adam wants to get a couple of battery backup units. For one of them, he just wants to protect his PS5 and Apple TV 4K. He wants to make sure he never has to deal with any data loss or potentially having a power outage during a firmware update. For the second setup, he wants to protect his modem from Spectrum and his Wi-Fi 6 router, keeping internet access available during a power outage, which sure would be nice. He was thinking to go with the APC BE850G2. That unit provides 6 battery backup outlets and can power 450 watts. 3 more outlets are surge only and costs $100. Should he go with that, or is there a better model for his purpose? Man, I cannot remember which one. I just bought like a 1251, one of the bigger ones, for my computer, because I have everything plugged in. I have 2 computers and a printer plugged into it. He does not like that printer, by the way. When that printer powers up, it's like drains the power out of that thing.
Oh goodness.
But we don't use the printer very often. It's fine. But yes, and then I have a very small one for my, because what do you need the modem and stuff on? How long do you need it on? 20 minutes, something like that. And I have a very small one for my modem in my you have a unit very similar to this. I think you might even have the 650 instead of the 850. I think I probably do have the 650
which is very similar, just a little bit lower capacity. That's all. I have no problem with you going with these for the purposes that you stated. You don't have gigantic power draws. The PS5 is not nothing, but it's not going to trip this thing or that this won't be sufficient. I have no problem with you going with that BE850. The only thing I will say is Amazon, in their Amazon Basics line, actually has essentially an equivalent model that goes for $85, and I'm using one on my computer setup, and it's totally fine. The performance of it is the same. It actually has more outlets only because it has 3 more surge only outlets. It also has 6 battery backup, and then it has 6 surge only. But the thing is, whether the form factor is different. They're actually about the same size, but the Amazon Basics one lies flat, whereas the APC one sort of stands up. It's purely a form factor thing, whether you'd prefer one that is like flatter with a wider footprint or one that has a smaller footprint but stands vertically more. So that's basically about it. Capacity is the same, runtime's about the same. The Amazon Basics one costs $15 less, so I have no problem pointing you to that one as well. I think for your purposes, either will do a great job.
All right, who do we have left?
Okay, Sasi has quite a long question on the list, so that works out. Jay, we're over 2 hours, so that's okay. Jay has sort of a time-sensitive one, but I'll email you directly, Jay, to answer you because he was wondering if he should do something in the near future. So that'll be that. But he actually had more questions than I put on the list because I knew we wouldn't get to all of them. So Jay will be on the list for sure next week, regardless.
All right. I want to thank our listeners of the week. I want to thank Sasi for going to avrant.com, clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, and sending us a PayPal donation, as well as our 133 patrons over at patreon.com.
Yes, indeed. Sasi, thank you very much for the PayPal donation, and patreon.com/AVRant podcast is where you can go to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. Big thanks to our 133 patrons over there.
Aaron thanks thanks Rob for testing out those codes for him. And so go ahead. Well, I guess whatever.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. I appreciate it. I think that is not the end of it. By all accounts, it sounds like that will continue.
We'll keep mentioning them as long as he keeps doing that. We thank John for talking us up to Accessories for Less, and for Kurt for backstabbing me and killing my surprise with Rob.
Yes, what a surprise, since you said you were going to do it last week. But yes, it was the timing, so I didn't fall out of my chair, even though my chair has arms. But yeah, John, thank you as well for mentioning us to Accessories for Less. That was nice. Too bad they're not able to ship to Ireland for you, but that was nice. You had a little conversation there.
So I want to thank those who sent notes in thanking us: Aaron, John G, John M, Jack, Greg, John without an H, Adam, and Sasi. Thank you very much for thanking us.
Indeed, I'll say the names one more time: Aaron, John G, John M, Jack, Greg, John, Adam, and Sasi. Thank you very much for those notes of gratitude and encouragement. We definitely appreciate them, and a big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
That's right. If you want to get your question answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. For AVRant, I'm Tom Andring.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.